Begin the Gemara on Daf Nun Vav Amid Beis, 3 lines up from the bottom of the Yamid. We're in the middle of the sugya of Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach. The Gemara before quoted a Braise of Tana de Bein Menashe, that according to their opinion, the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach is not the way we know it, as the Gemara quoted before. What are the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach la halacha? And the way the Gemara quotes the Braise first: Dinin, Birchas Hashem, Avodah Zarah, Gili Arayis, Shvichas Damim, Gezel, Ever Menachai. Okay, I'm not going to go through and translate all the details, but that's what the Braise brought. And then the Gemara said, according to Tana de Bein Menashe, there are two that are taken out, and it's replaced with another two. Which two are taken out? Dinin and Birchas Hashem. Dalet Chof. Those two are taken out. And instead, it's replaced with Samech Chof. And Samech Chof refers to Sirus, castration, and Kalayim. Crossbreeding animals, or also by trees. That's what's replaced according to Tana de Bein Menashe. Okay, so the Gemara now wants to know what's the source of this Braise by Menashe that they taught us, that the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach, these two are different. So the Gemara asks, Tana de Bein Menashe, according to this opinion, what's the source? I Dorish Vayitzav, does he dash in the pasuk that the Gemara brought before as the source for Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach? This is the pasuk that it says by Adam Rishon, and it says by the Gemara before brought Vayitzav Hashem Elokim ala Adam Leimar Mikol Eitz Hagan Ochel Teichel. The Gemara learned out before from every single word another one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach. So do they agree to that drasha? So then Afilah Hanach Nami. So then the two of Dinin and Birchas Hashem that are learned out from that pasuk should be included as well. Why does he take them out? So if it is not darshan the remez of that pasuk for the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach, so Hanem Menole. So then these that he says are the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach, what is his source for this? If it's not in that pasuk, so how do you know Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach altogether? And says the Gemara, Lo'olam loy dorish vayitzav. He doesn't darshan the remez of that pasuk by the vayitzav by Adam Rishon. Now Hani, the 7 that he counts, kol chode v'chode, each one of them, ba'api nafshek sive. He has a separate source for them that by the Goyim they're obligated in these things. So what's the source? The Gemara is going to go through now, according to this Braise, Tana de Bein Menashe, where do you see a source for each one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach, the way he counts it? It says the Gemara, Avodah Zarah v'Gilei Arayis, Avodah Zarah and Gilei Arayis, you both see, the Chsiv, the Pasuk says, before the Mabul, Vatishochis ha'aretz lefnei Elokim, that the world, the land was destroyed, or was completely, Tishochis, completely destroyed in front of Hashem. Now what does this expression, Tishochis, mean? The Tana de Rabbi Shmuel taught, Kol Mokim shenemer hashchasa, whenever it uses the term hashchasa, Eine ela dvar erve v'avedas kechavim. It refers to arayis, immoral relationships, and it refers to avodas zarah. Dvar erve, where do I see it refers to arayis? Shenemer, the pasuk says, Ki hishches kol basar es darkai. So the term darkai refers to marital relations. As Rashi brings the pasuk derech gevra b'alma. The word derech is used also in relations between people. And by Deir Mabul, it says there before, they were punished for arayis. The pasuk in the end of Bereshit says, Vayiru b'nei Elokim es b'nei Adam ki toivus heina. So this was one of the things that brought the Mabul, the Gili arayis of that time. Then avodas kechavim, the term Vatishachis refers to Avodah Zarah as well, because the pasuk says, by Avodah Zarah pen tashchisun vasisen v'gaimer. You will be tashchisun, you will be destroyed, or tashchisun, you will go off, and vasisem. So we see the term tashchisun is Avodah Zarah. Now, v'idach, according to the other Braise that we brought before, that this agrees with this Braise of Menashe, and they learn it out from the pasuk Vayitzav, that it says by Adam Rishon and Gan Eden. Why don't they learn it out from here? What it says by the generation by before the Mabul. So they'll tell you, Orchayu de Komegali. All the pasuk is saying is what their behavior was that caused the einish of the Mabul. But it's not saying over here, Vayitzav, it's not saying a mitzvah that this is a warning for the Bnei Noyach not to do Gili Arayis or Avodah Zarah. So therefore they hold you can't learn it from here. Okay, now according to Tana de Bein Menashe, what's the source for Shvichas Damim? Since they don't darshan from the pasuk Vayitzav by Adam Rishon, Shvichas Damim, the source for Shvichas Damim they learn the Chsiv. It says Shayfech Dam Ha'Adam Ba'Adam. Continuation of the pasuk is Dama Yishafech Ki B'Tzelem Elkim Asas Adam. So the pasuk there says that one should not spill the blood of someone else, and then his blood will be spilled. That's the source that is Isser of Shvichas Damim as one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noyach. The other opinion that does not learn from here, Ketalayu Hudika Magali. This pasuk is just coming to let you know what will be the punishment of a guy that kills someone. And the pasuk is saying, Shefach Dama Adam Adam, according to this opinion, Gemara brought before already, that by the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, what's the punishment? Misa. But which Misa? Sayef, with the sword, because it says the blood is spilled, which is what happens when one is put to death by a sword. That's all it's coming to say. But it's not. This is not the source for the mitzvah of Shichas Damim as one of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. Gezel, according to the Tanna Debei Menashe, what's the source of Gezel? The pasuk says, Ki yerek esev nasati lechem es koil, that after the Mabul, the Eibishter says that like the grass, I give you everything else that you can eat also from the animals. And what do I see from this? That V'amar Rab Levi Ki yerek esev. The pasuk is saying that you should eat only like with the grass that you eat. And this is the grass that's hefker. Grass refers to like the grass that grows near the water that is not owned by anybody. But v'lei ki yerek gino, not to eat like the vegetables in a garden that are privately owned. So from the expression of the pasuk, you see that they're commanded, the goyim are commanded on gezel. According to the other opinion that doesn't learn from here, Hahu lemishri basaru dasa. That pasuk was coming to say that before the Mabul, they weren't allowed to eat the basar, the meat of any animals. They weren't allowed to kill animals and eat any animals. And here it's coming to say that they're allowed to eat from the animals. That's what this pasuk is coming to say. But it's not a source of a pasuk that they shouldn't steal. And Rashi here clarifies, even though before the Mabul they weren't even allowed to eat any animals, but nevertheless there was also separately an Isser of Eivrim and Achai that you learned from what it says by Adam Erishin, because even though they weren't allowed to eat any animals, that's not to kill any animal, to eat. But maybe if a limb of an animal falls off from it, without killing it, it just falls off, maybe you would think that a limb that came from a living animal you are allowed to eat. So there is a separate mitzvah of Eivrim and Achai that you learn out from the Pasuk of Vayitzav. Evim and Achai, what's the source for Evim and Achai according to Tanna Debei Menashe that doesn't learn from Vayitzav? The pasuk says, Ach basar benafshoi domoi loisechelu, that the basar of the nefesh, and that what is the nefesh of an animal? Domoi, the blood is the nefesh. By an animal, the life is in the blood, and therefore the blood is the nefesh. Loisechelu, you should not eat this basar that comes from an animal that's alive, that has a dam that's still living. That's the source of Evim and Achai by a guy. According to the other opinion that doesn't learn from here, that pasuk is coming to say lemishri shratzim udasa. It's coming to say that they're allowed to eat shratzim, which are not regular animals, these are small creeping animals. That it's coming to say that they're allowed to eat shratzim. How do you see that from this pasuk? So Rashi says, because when it says here basar ben nafshoy damai, what it's saying is that we're talking about large animals. By large animals, there's the basar. There's the meat of the animal, the flesh, and then there's the dam. And the nefesh is in the dam. That's where the life of the animal is. But when it comes to these small animals, the dam does not have that status of saying that the dam is the nefesh. The dam is like the basar itself. That's what the dam is. And Rashi actually brings the halacha is when you eat dam of an animal, you chayav kares. But when you eat a dam from these shrotzim, there's no chiyuv of kares, because the dam is not nefesh. The dam is like the basar of these small animals. So because it says in the pasuk, basar benafshe dami loisechelu, so from there I learn out but that by shrotzim it's allowed, because over there, their dam has a different status. Sirus, according to Tanna Debei Menashe, the sirus, castration, is also one of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. The source is the pasuk says, also after the Mabul, or this is actually before the Mabul, this is in... where's this pasuk? It's after the Mabul, I think. Shirtzu ba'aretz, should multiply in the land, v'rabu ba, and you'll grow and add and have children in the land. What does this mean? That you're not allowed to do sirus, which is taking away the ability to reproduce, to have children. But according to the other opinion, lebracha ba'alma. This is after the Mabul, which is the Eibusha giving a bracha that they'll multiply and have children. But it's not saying a isser on sirus. The last one, Kilayim, according to Menashe, what's the source of Kilayim being Yisr by Goyim? And this is specifically the Kilayim of crossbreeding animals. The Chsiv, because the pasuk says when the animals came to the Teva, it says Meha'oif lemineu, the birds came to the Teva with their kind, and it says the Behema lemina, and so on. So we see that he brought into the Teva each one with its kind, not crossbreeding. So you see that was one of the mitzvahs as well. According to the other opinion, it's not saying this as a mitzvah. In order that the animals should be with the partner, that they should have children. So the easiest and normal way is to do it with limineo. That's the way it was brought, but not that it was a mitzvah, that you could learn from here, Isser by Goyim, not to crossbreed animals. So this is the end of the explanation for Tana Debei Menashe, how they learn out the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach from an individual psukim. Rav Yosef said, Omri Bei Rav. By the yeshiva of Rav, they said, Al Shalis Mitzvahs Ben Noach Nerek. Only 3 out of the 7 mitzvahs of Ben Noach that's over on them, there's a chiyuv of misa, but not on the others. And what's the siman for these 3? Gesher, siman. What's the gesher? Gili Arayis, Shvichas Damim, and the Reish is Birchas Hashem. It's the second letter of it. It's Birchas Hashem. Only these 3 is, that's what it says, Al Gili Arayis, Al Shvichas Damim, Al Birchas Hashem. But the Gemara asks in this, if you say that it's only 3, it's okay. So now, by a guy that kills someone, shvichas damim, the pasuk says, as we quoted before, shofech dam adam ba'adam. So the pasuk says afterwards, so dama yishafech. So he's going to be killed as well. That's clear in the pasuk that he's chayiv misa. Elo hanoch, but the other 2 you're mentioning, Gilei Arayis and Birchas Hashem, minalahu. How do you know there that from the Sheva mitzvahs that for them you chayiv misa? If you're going to say that you learn out from Shvichas Damim, that the others of Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach are the same, that is Chayiv Misa, so then Afila Kulunami. It should not be only regarding Gili Arayis and Birchas Hashem, it should apply to all of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. What are you going to say? That there's another source by them. And that is, if you're going to say that it's because of the double expression that it says ish ish, and this double expression of ish ish, it says by Gili Arayis, and it says by Birchas Hashem as well. The Gemara quoted this before. It says ish by both of them. So that's why ish goes on a yid and lahabdul goy as well. But if so, avedis kechavim nami yisrabi. You should learn out the same should apply by avedis zara, because there it also says the term of ish ish. And that refers to avedis kechavim as well. So why are we saying that by avedis kechavim over there's no misa for a guy? So Elam Rav Sheshes adds that taka, the way you have to say what they said by Rav was Omri Bei Rav. By Rav they taught that Al Arba mitzvahs, 4 of the 7 of the mitzvahs Bnei Noach, Nerak, Yichayv Misa. So that includes also Avodah Zarah, as we just mentioned. So it's not the 3 we said before, but it's Gilei Arayis, Shvichas Damim, Birchas Hashem, and also Avodah Zarah, 4 of them. But the Gemara asks on the last one here that we just added, Avodah Zarah, but Avedis Kechavim Ben Nerag. Is it true that a guy is chayiv misa for serving Avodah Zarah? But Vatanya in a brayse we learned Avedis Kechavim when it comes to Avodah Zarah. Dvarim shebezin shel Yisrael memisam aleim. If it's Avodah Zarah, it's serving Avodah Zarah in a way that by a yid he would be chayiv misa. Benayach muzar aleim. A guy is warned on this not to serve Avodah Zarah as well as part of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. So the Gemara is medayik, the language of the Braisa. It sounds like it's saying as hara in that by a guy he has the warning for this, but misa loy, but not misa. By a yid it said misa. But the Gemara says no, it's not a question. Amar Rav Nachman b'Yitzchak azara shalahen zui misasan. By a guy the azhara that it says if they're warned not to do this and they're over on their aveda, this is their misa. By a guy it doesn't have to say clearly in the Torah the misa. Even without this, the azhara itself is the misa. Now other students of Rav Huna, Rav Yehuda, and all the other students of Rav said differently than what was quoted before. Rav Yosef or Rav Sheshes quoted before that what was said by Rav. And they said, Al Sheva mitzvahs ben Noach nerak. A guy, if he's over on any of the Sheva mitzvahs ben Noach, is chayiv misa. Gali Rachmana b'chade, the Torah said it clearly by one of them, as we quoted before, by Shvichas Dam, by a guy that murders, and Vuad Din L'Kulu. And we learn out that the same applies to all Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Now, so the Gemara asks on one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, Vala Gezel ben Noach Nerag. Is it true that one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, if a guy steals, he'll be chayiv misa? But Vatanya, in a brayse we learned, Ala Gezel, when it comes to Gezel, a guy is commanded also not to steal. So what is an example of Gezel? So the Braisa spells out examples for Gezel. Gonav, the Gozal, that includes whether he's a thief. A thief is someone that is stealing in a hiding manner. Or Gozal, he's a robber that comes and steals openly. V'chein Yefas Toyar, or he steals a beautiful wife from his friend, or even in a war. That's the Fas Toyar, and he takes a woman. So this applies by a guy that it's usher. and the Sheva Mitzvahs Ben Noach for a guy. Now the Braisa adds, V'chein kayetze behen. This will include also other cases that are similar. Gemara is soon going to have a long discussion what this expression of V'chein kayetze ben means. What else is similar that the Braisa means to include? So regarding these cases we just mentioned, kuti bekuti, whether it's a kuti that is stealing from another kuti. So kuti simply refers to those kutim that came and were Megayer, and in the times of the first base of Mikdash, and it turned out that they weren't really gated. They have a halacha like a guy. Or it it refers here to a guy. It says kuti here because of the censors, but it means a guy that steals from another guy, or v'kuti bi Yisrael, or a guy that steals from a Yid, asr. So that's the Isser of Gzeila, of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach by a guy. But V'Yisrael, B'kuti, mutter. A Yisrael, to steal from a guy, is allowed. That's what it says here in this Braisa. Now Rashi brings the pasuk because it says, L'sashoik es reyacha, that the Isser of stealing is only from reyacha, from another Yid, but not by a guy. But Rashi brings from the Gemara in Baba Kama, where it says that you're not allowed to steal from a guy either. And Rashi here says that Isser to steal from a guy is only a Isser midrabanan. But other Rishonim and in Shulchan Aruch it says that the Isser to steal from a guy is actually an Isser min HaTorah, not only an Isser midrabanan. Okay, so now the Gemara says, what do we see here in this Braisa? What's the term that it uses? It says that by a guy it's Aser, and by a Yisrael b'kuti, a Yisrael to steal from a guy is mutter, is allowed. Now, if you look at the word Aser, ve'misa, if it's true that for all Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach yichayiv misa, including Gezel, so misni chayiv. The term that should be used is not that it's Aser. It should say that by a guy, it's chayiv. Not only Aser, it's chayiv misa. And says the Gemara, the reason it doesn't use that term is mishum the Kabbalah misni seife, since it wants to say the contrast regarding the Yid, the Yisrael, b'kuti, mutter, that a Yid that steals from a guy, that it's allowed. So since it wants to say the term here mutter, so Tana Reisha Aser. It says in the Reisha the term Aser. If it would say by the guy chayiv, then the contrast by a Yid would be potter. But then potter would sound like that he's not allowed to steal from the guy, it's just that he's going to be potter from the punishment of Misa. But it wants to say that it's mutter. So therefore it uses the term Aser by a guy and then says mutter by a Yid. But the Gemara asks on this, but kol heiche the islay chiyuve misni ketani. You're telling me that it's using this term because it wants to say the contrast to a Yid, but we see there in this Braisa itself that it also speaks about other things of what is Aser by a guy. And when it wants to say that it's not only Aser, but he's going to be Chayiv Misa, it uses the term Chayiv there. Because the Tani Reisha, because there in that Braisa, in the beginning of this Braisa, it says, Al Shvichas Damim, that a guy is commanded not to murder. And what does this mean? So the Braisa goes on to explain, Kuti b'kuti, a guy kills another guy, v'kuti b'Yisrael, or a guy kills a Yid, Chayiv. It doesn't say just Aser. Here it actually says Chayiv, there will be Chayiv Misa. And Yisrael b'kuti, a Yid that kills a guy, potter. He's going to be potter from the punishment of Misa if he kills a guy. So what do you see over here? That in the same Braisa it does use the term chayiv, even though later on it contrasts by a Yid and it uses the term mutter. So the Gemara explains that over here it's different. Well, here it says potter, but later by Gzeila it says mutter. Okay, so the Gemara Taka answers and says there's a difference. When by shvichas damim, it uses the term chayiv by Yisrael, and then by the kuti, a Yisrael that kills a guy, it says potter. It's why? What's the reason? Because Hassam over there by Shvichas Damim, heichi listening. What should it say? Listening Aser or Mutter? Should the Braisa say that a guy is not allowed to kill a guy is not allowed to kill a Yid? And then it would say, what's the contrast by a Yid? That a Yid is allowed to kill a guy? It actually can't say that. Because Vatanya, in a Braisa we learned that Kuti v'roye bakar, a Kuti, a guy, or roye bakar, roye behema that is. Roye behema daka, these roye behema daka, they are people that steal from everyone. They allow their behemoth, their small livestock, to go and eat from the grass or the produce of people's private properties. So they're stealing from everybody. So these individuals, loy mailin, if they fall into a pit and their life is in danger, you don't have to save their life, and v'loy meridin, but you're not allowed to lachatchila kill them. So what do you see over here? That a Yid, to kill a Yid is not allowed to kill a guy. If he does kill a guy, then the chi of misa that applies when a Yid kills another Yid does not apply. But a Yid is not allowed to kill a guy. So therefore over here, when it comes to shvichas damim, over there the Braisa says that by a guy he's chayiv, and by a Yid, if he kills a guy, he's potter. because you can't say mutter there. But then when it comes to gzeila, though, by gzeila it says that the guy is aser, and by a yid, the gzeila to steal from a guy is mutter. So it's not the same thing. So it's using the term aser and mutter just to contrast to a yid. But the MS, gzeila is one of the shava mitzvahs b'nei noyach. If a guy is over on gzeila, he's chayiv misa. Just like we said before Rav, the Talmud they said by Rav, but all shava mitzvahs b'nei noyach, a guy is chayiv misa. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to the Braisa here, as I mentioned. The Braisa uses the term after it speaks about gzeila and so on. It says kayotze behen. There's v'chein kayotze behen. There's others that are similar. What does this mean? Kayotze by begezel mahi. What exactly is it? The kayotze by something that's similar to gzeila that the Braisa means to include in this. So the Gemara is going to try a few different pshatim of this. Amar Rabacha bar Yaakov. So Rabacha bar Yaakov tries to explain what it's referring to is a worker in a vineyard, and he takes from the produce, or he takes from the grapes, and he eats from it. So this is seemingly not mamish a geneva, because he's a worker here, and he takes and he eats from it. So this is something that's similar to gzeila. But the Gemara asks on this, that can't be the case, because at what stage are we talking about? Payal bekere memis. This worker in the vineyard, at what stage? Ibishaz gemar malacha. If this is at the time when he already finished his work and he's putting the grapes into the basket, so then at that time it's actually mutter to eat from the grapes. So Rashi here says, if the rule is, if this is something which is mutter by a yid, it's going to be mutter by a guy as well. We're not more machmer by a guy than it is by a yid. So if by a yid it's mutter, then by a guy it's also mutter. And besides that, from the lashon of the Braisa, it's mashma that a guy may not steal from a yid. That's what it says. But it's mashma, but a yid from a yid, then this would be aser. But again, the Braisa says that the guy from a yid in such a case will be aser. Second, it's mashma that by a yid this would be the diak from the Braisa says mashma. Rashi says that it would be aser. Because the Braisa says Yisrael b'kuti. No, sorry, again, the Braisa says Yisrael b'kuti. If a guy is taken from a guy, in such a case it would be mutter. Yisrael from a guy would be mutter. It's mashma, a yid from another yid, this would be aser. But why would this be aser? We're talking about the worker after he already finished doing his work and he's putting the grapes into the keli. Then it should be mutter. So you can't say this is the case of the Braisa. It's another question that Rashi says the Gemara is asking here. Now, ilav b'shas gemar malacha. If it's not at the time when he finishes work, he's in the middle of doing his work of picking the grapes and so on. So at that time you're not allowed to eat at all. Gezam alyu. This is no different than any regular gzeila where you're robbing, you're taking from the person. So why is this considered to be kayotze behen? This is something which is similar to gzeila. Elam Rav Papa suggests another pshat. When it says it's something that's similar, kayotze ben to gzeila, what's the case? If you're stealing less than a shava pruta, so this is something which is not a real gzeila, and still the Braisa is saying that it's aser by a guy. But the Gemara asks on this, but if that's what the case is, kuti bi Yisrael aser. Why are you saying that if a guy steals from a yid, this is aser? Why is it aser? Habar mechiluhu. Less than a shava pruta. If you steal from a yid less than a shava pruta, he's meichel it. So it's such a little amount. So the Gemara says no, but it's still aser. Because the basar hachi machale, even if after you steal from a person something that's not worth a shava pruta, he forgives it, but saide b'shaitem less late. But at the time when you steal from him, he doesn't have any pain from this, that you're taking away something from him. So therefore, it's still also for a guy to steal from a yid less than a shava pruta. But the Gemara still asks on this pshat, kuti bekuti. When it comes to a kuti that steals from another kuti less than a shava pruta, kayotze ben. So you're saying that this is the pshat of the kayotze ben, that a guy that steals from another guy less than a shava pruta, so then this is the iser of gzeila that applies here as well. But how can this be? Kiven de la b'nei mechilaninu. Why are you calling this kayotze ben? If by a guy they are not meichel. This whole concept that there's a difference between a shava pruta, less than a shava pruta, why? Because less than a shava pruta, you're meichel. That's by a yid. By a guy, that's not shayach. A guy is makbid, and the tiniest amount of money you take from him, even less than a shava pruta. So if they're not b'nei mechila, so then gezel ma'aliyu. This is no different than regular gzeila. Less than a shava pruta is not less of a gzeila than more than a shava pruta. So why would the Braisa use the term of kayotze ben? So says the Gemara, and this is the final pshat the Gemara gives her. Ela Amar Avache Berei Ravike. The pshat on this Braisa when it says kayotze behen, something similar to gzeila, when one holds back from paying a hired worker. So in such a case, kuti bikuti vikuti bi Yisrael aser. A guy that doesn't pay a worker, whether he doesn't pay a guy that worked for him, he doesn't pay a yid that worked for him, it's aser. Yisrael bikuti, but a Yisrael that has a guy that worked for him and he's not paying him, mutter. This is not a gzeila. Gzeila, Rashi says, only when it says, Rashi brings a pasuk, it says, Vayigzal esachanis miyad mitzri. When you're grabbing something out of someone's hands, that's real gzeila. But someone that worked for you and you're not paying him, that's kayetze boy. That's similar to gzeila. It's not real gzeila. So over there, here it's saying that by Yisrael b'kuti this is mutter, and by a goy this is aser. That's the case. Okay, now the Gemara here is going to go on and say that this expression in the Braisa of kayetze boy, it didn't only say the kayetze boy regarding gzeila. In the Braisa it was mentioned also Gneve, it mentioned Yifas Toyar, the Kayetze boy could go on that as well. Rashi actually here says regarding Gneve, which is when a person, a thief that steals in a hiding manner, a hiding manner, the Gemara doesn't bring what Kayetze boy means. In other Rishonim it says that the Kayetze boy regarding Gneve is the case the Gemara just said. If a person doesn't pay a person that worked for him, it could be B'derech Gneve or it could be B'derech Gzeila. You could either tell the guy that worked for you, I'm not paying you. You worked for me, I'm not paying for you. That's B'derech Gzeila. B'derech Gneva would be that the guy comes to you and says, pay me for my work, and you say, you ever worked for me? I don't know, I don't know you anything. That's B'derech Gneva, because you're making believe as if you don't know of anything. So that's according to other Rishonim, the answer for Kayetze boy, how it applies to Gneva and Gzeila. But the Brais also says, Yifas Toya. And by Yifas Toya, it also on that uses the term of Kayetze boy. So the Gemara now asks, the kayetze b'yifas toyar mahi. What is something that's similar to a yifas toyar, which means a yifas toyar is a eshes ish, and you see her in war, and you grab her, you take it for yourself. What is another issa by a guy that's similar to this? So he came and he said, Ben noyach sheyichet shivcha la'avdai. By a guy that designated a maid to be married to his eved, to his slave. So this is not a real marriage. There's no marriage by a slave, by a shivcha. So even though it's not a real marriage, but nevertheless, this is also going to be aser by a guy as well. And this is the kayetze boy that it's saying over here. Ubala. So the master now came and he had a relation with this shivcha that he designated for his eved, nera galel. This is the nera, he's going to be killed for this. This is the kayetze boy that it says, benigay to a Yifas Toyar. Now Rashi over here says that by a kuti bi Yisrael, it applies by a kuti that takes this shivcha that was designated for another guy, and the same thing also by a shivcha kananis, by a yid that designated a shivcha kananis for another yid. So also the guy will be killed. But a Yisrael bekuti, this will be allowed. A Yisrael that goes out in war, he's allowed to take a Yifas Toyar, even that's mamish a full eshes ish. For sure, this kind of Yifas Toyar, which is only Kayetze boy, that is not even a real eshes ish, because it's just a shivcha that was designated. And then Rashi says a Yisrael be Yisrael in such a case will actually be aser. This is the isser of a shivcha charufa by a shivcha kananis that's living, that's married or living, so to speak, with a evet kanani. Okay, now the Gemara goes on to say Kayetze boy the shvichas damim loitanya. This term kayetze boy and this brayse that we have here, it uses this term only regarding gneve, gzeila, or yifas toyar. But in this brayse, when it mentions shvichas damim, it doesn't say a kayetze boy. That is something similar to shvichas damim. Why not? Because there is no similar. Shvichas damim is shvichas damim. So there's nothing to say that's similar to it. Now the Gemara says, Amar Abaye. However, Abaye said, "I mishkachas de tanya." If you'll see a brayse where it does use this expression and says, but by a guy there's an isser of shvichas damim, of murder, and then there's something that's similar. What is that thing that's similar? So you should know that Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul. We could explain this according to the opinion of Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul. What is this? The Tanya we learned in a brayse. Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul said, a person is chasing his friend and he wants to kill him. And you could save yourself, you could self-defense, you could injure this person with one of his evarim that he shouldn't be able to chase you. And you didn't save yourself by injuring this person. You killed him. So by a yid, you'll be killed for this. But if this is the kayetze by a guy, that by a guy, Neragolov, since you could have saved yourself Echad Be'evarav and you didn't, so Neragolov will be Chayev Misa for this. So this is not exactly a case of regular Shvichas Damim, because the person was doing this in self-defense. Right? So nevertheless, according to Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul, that we have over here, Rabbi Yonasan ben Shaul, so in such a case, by a guy that does this to another guy, or a guy by a Yid is going to be Chayev Misa. Now, Rashi says it's similar by Yisrael also will be chayiv misa in such a case. But a Yisrael, if this happens between a Yid and a Goy, that a Goy is chasing a Yid, and the Yid could save himself in self-defense, he could injure this guy, but nevertheless he kills him, by Yisrael, Bekuti, he's going to be potter. So this is according to Rabbi Yonasan. But the Rabbanan disagree with this. Rabbanan say that in such a case, it's totally mutter. If someone is a raidif, he's chasing you, even if in self-defense you could just injure him, you're allowed to kill him. You don't have to try to injure him, you're allowed to kill him. So, but according to Rabbi Yonasan Marshal, we have another case of kayetze bay, something that's similar to shvichas damim. The Gemara continues with another halacha regarding Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. Ashkach Rav Yaakov bar Acha, the Havakosov b'Sefer Agadata, the Bei Rav Yaakov bar Acha found that it was written in the Sefer of Agadata by Rav as follows: that Ben Noach nerag b'dayin echad, a guy that is over on the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, he's killed even with one judge that's judging him, ube'eid, even based on what one witness says, eid echad that is, and shaloi basra, even without any warning. And mipiyish, but it's only if the testimony is coming from a man, v'loi mipiyisha, not if the testimony is from a woman, va'afilu karev, and even if the testimony is coming from a relative. By a yid, the testimony of a relative is worthless, right? But by a guy, the testimony of a relative is good. And Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Amru, another detail it said there in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, af ala obrin. By a guy, if he will hit a woman, a pregnant woman, and it'll cause her to lose her pregnancy, the guy will be chayiv misa for this as well, and that applies only by a guy and not by a yid. By a yid, even though you're not allowed to cause a loss of a pregnancy, but there's no chayiv misa on that. It's also but no chayiv misa. By a guy though, loss of a pregnancy that you cause, the guy is chayiv misa. This is actually an interesting thing. It's a chumrah that's by a guy and not by a yid. Says the Gemara, Mina and Emili. So what's the source of these details that it says here in this Braisa? Rav Yudah said, the pasuk that we quoted before regarding the Chiyav Misa of a guy. So it says, Va'ach es dimchem l'nafshisechem edroish. Actually, this pasuk was not quoted before. It's a new pasuk. So it says, Ach es dimchem l'nafshisechem edroish. That the blood of your soul I will demand. Now this edroish is written as in a singular term, and that means afilah b'dayin echad. Even one judge that's demanding of a guy that was over in the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, with one judge, he can give him a chiv misa. Then it says in the pasuk, miyad kol chaya, from the hands of any living being. What does this term mean? Afilah shaloi basra. Even if the one that warned you the one that is testifying about this did not warn you. Right, because it says miyad kol chaya. The term chaya means even like an animal that cannot warn you. So even without a hasra, you'll be chayiv misa as well. Then it says, you can read the pasuk also. It says edreshenu umiyad ha'adam. So what this means is a filah be'ed echad edreshenu, based on the words of Adam, of one person that is testifying, even an eid echad, you can be mechayiv a goy misa. But now the pasuk there it says miyad ish. Only if it's a man that says and the testimony, v'le miyad isha, not a guy that testifies. Then it says there, achiv, miyad ish achiv, edroishes nefesh adam, so that means a filah karev. That even a brother, even a relative that testifies about a guy that was over in Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach will be chayiv misa. Now the next thing it said over there was Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Amru, af ala ubrin, that by a guy, even for a loss of a pregnancy, you're also going to be chayiv misa that you caused this. My time with Rabbi Shmuel, what's the source of Rabbi Shmuel said? What Rabbi Shmuel says, because the pasuk we quoted before, Namar Aleph, it says, "Shoifech dam ha'adam ba'adam dam yishafech." What does he learn out from this pasuk? Ezeu adam shehu be'adam. This term of dam ha'adam be'adam means that there's one human being within another. This refers to a fetus in the mother's womb. That's what that pasuk is talking about, and it says by a guy that he's going to be chayiv misa for this. Now, the Tanakame that disagrees with this, Tana debei Menashu. The reason he disagrees with what Rabbi Shmuel darshans from this pasuk, Shayfech Dama Adam Be Adam Dama Yishafech, is because he holds like the Braise by Menashe, and they learn something else from these words. The Amar, they say as follows: Kol Misa Ho'amura Lebnei Noach. Anytime it says that a guy is chayiv misa for being over on the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, what misa is this? Ein ela chenek. The misa that is chayev is chenek. This is different than what we said until now. Until now we said by a guy it's sayev. Here he says that by Menashe they taught that you chayev chenek. And how do you learn this out? Because v'shadile hai be'adam asayf dekra v'darish be'yachi. He takes the word be'adam that it says in the end of the pasuk, and he darshans it as follows: Be'adam dami yishafech. That when you spill his blood, the blood is spilled inside of him. He dies without the blood spilling outside of him. How is it that a person that dies and his blood is not spilled outside, but his blood spills inside, meaning that you don't see any blood outside? This is chenek. So according to the other opinion, you learn out here, shayfich dam, literally, that you spill blood. So that's sayif, that's with a sword. But he learns out bi adam, that there's no blood outside, that's chenek. That's according to Tana Debei Menashe. Now, Masav Rav Amnuna asks on one of the details that we said before, that you learn out of here from the term that it says in the pasuk miyad ish, that a man that says eidos, then you can give by Misa, by Shava Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. So Rav Amnuna asked, V'isha loy mifkada. Would you say that by a isha, she's not commanded in the Shava Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, but it says in the pasuk, V'hoksev, Ki yidaitiv lemana sheyitzave v'goymer, in the pasuk that it says there by Avram Avinu lemana sheyitzave as ban v'esbeisei achrov, and the continuation of the pasuk there it says v'shomru derech Hashem lasais tzedakah u'mishpat. So it says there tzedakah u'mishpat. Mishpat refers to judgment. So what do you see over there? That includes women as well. So the question of the Gemara is regarding din, regarding the judgment. That he's asking that could you say that a woman is not in the judgment in judging a guy? That a woman can't judge, she can't be a witness, she can't judge. But in this pasuk, it's mashma that by Avram Avinu it says that as Beisai refers to a woman as well. I'm going to answer this, and he said it says two terms in the pasuk there. It says tzedakah and mishpat. Banav lidin. The term mishpat goes on his sons. That's by a ish. There's din, there's judgment, to be an aid, to be a judge. Beisai l'tzedakah. When it says there beisai, which means the women as well, that refers to tzedakah, but not to being a judge or to being a witness. Raviv Yisaba said to Rav Papa, so maybe I should say that bas noyach shaharga loy taharik. Maybe I should say that a woman, a guy that kills, she should not be chayiv misa. Why? Because it says miyadish. The lashon of the pasuk we quoted before says that miyadish achav edresh es nefesh adam. So that would mean v'loy miyadisha, that only a man that kills by a guy is chayiv misa, but not a woman. Amalei. So he answered him, Hachi Amar Rav Yehuda. This is what Rav Yehuda said. The pasuk there then those says. The other pasuk we quoted says shayfich dam ha'adam. You spill the blood of a man. Shayfich dam ha'adam ba'adam mikol makim. Adam refers to whether it's a man or a woman. Makes no difference. Another question he asked, I should say that a bas noyach, a woman that has an immoral relationship, that she should not be chayiv misa. Why? Because the chsiv, by the psukim, by Adam Rishon, it says, Al-Kain, Yazev, Ish, a man leaves his parents and he goes and he gets married. So it uses the term Ish, that a man has to be faithful to his marriage. A man goes and gets married. There's v'layisha. Maybe that excludes a woman. That a woman by bnei noyach that is mizana, she should not be chayiv misa. Amalei. So he answered him. Hachi Amar Rav Yehuda. This is what Rav Yehuda said. V'hayu l'basar echad. That pasuk goes on to say that then the man and woman become like one flesh. So it talks about the man and woman together. Hadar vinukra. The pasuk is saying that it applies both to the man and woman. That if they're mizana, as an ish, both ish and an isha will be chayiv misa. Tana Rabbanan and a brayso will be learned. Ish matamad loymar. So this is a pasuk that it says by arayas. It says ish, but then matamad loymar ish. Why does it say the double expression of ish by the isser of arayas by Yidden? The rabbis is akutim. It's coming to add goyim as well. Shemizharon al arayas ki Yisrael. They're warned on all the isurim of arayas like Yidden. In fact, the Gemara, why are we learning it out from the double lashon of ish that it says here? It's learned out from the double lashon of ish that it says here. We learn it out from the pasuk that was quoted before that it says by Adam Rishon, by Yitzav Hashem Elokim. So that was the pasuk that it learned from each word in the pasuk. Another one of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, and the Gemara before said Leimai. From the term Leimai, we learned out Zegilei Arayis. From there you learn out that a guy is not allowed to have an immoral relationship. So why are we saying here that we have to learn it out from the double lashon of ish? Answers the Gemara, Hasam ba'arayis diduhu. The limit of that pasuk is talking about the arayis of a guy having those relationships between themselves with another guy. V'hacha ba'arayis didan. Here it's talking about arayis of an eishes of a yid, that a guy has a relationship with an eishes of a yid. That's why you need this pasuk of ish here. The Tani Seifa, because in the Seifa of this brayso we just quoted, it says, Ba al arayis Yisrael, a guy that had a relation with an eishes ish of a yid, nidin bedini Yisrael. So over here, his punishment will be different, and he'll be judged like a yid. Says the Gemara, Lamai Hilchasa. What is the difference that you say that he's going to be judged like a Yid? How's that different than being judged like a guy? Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avuha, le'nitzrecha ela le'eda ve'edim v'asra. What this means is that a guy that has an immoral relationship with another guy, Eishes Ish, so over there, as we said before, you don't have to have a proper bezdin. It could even be just one person, one aid, without any warning. But a guy that has a relationship with the Eishes Ish of a Yid, you have to have a proper bezdin of 23, and you have to have edim, and you have to have a proper warning. That's the pshat that Rav Nachman said. So the Gemara asks him this, how could you say this? Migra Gora. It's going to be more lenient here. A guy that has a relationship with another guy, so we're stringent. You give him misa even with one judge, with no asra and so on. He has a relationship with the Eishes of a Yid. We're going to be more lenient and say that you have to have a proper bezdin and proper edim and proper asra. So Ella Omar Rabbi Yechanan, and therefore Rabbi Yechanan says the pshat here is different. When it says over here that Nidin Bedine Yisrael, what's this unique thing that you say that he's judged like Yidden? What it's adding is Elo Lenaira Ma'irasa. What it's saying is that there's the Isser of Arayis, if a guy has a relationship with an Eishes Ish of a Yid, that will include even a Naira Ma'irasa, even a girl after the first stage of marriage. Dilididhu, by a guy that has a relationship with another Eishes Ish of a guy, and it's only a naira ma'irasa, first stage of marriage. Her husband was not boil her yet. Less lahu. There's no isser for this. Didainina lahu bedina didon. Lest lo dedainina lahu bedina didon. We do not judge them like we judge by a yid, that by a naira meirasa you're going to be chayiv. By a guy, there's no isser of arayis by a naira meirasa. The Gemara is soon going to bring the source for this. By a guy, it says bu'ulas bal. So only if she's an eishes ish that her husband had a relationship with her already, then the isser applies. But by a guy, that doesn't apply. Aval eishes ish bedina ditu dainina lahu. But by Eishes Ish, by the dinim of Goyim does apply to them. And as I said, that's only Bu'ulas Baal. But this Isra of Naira Ma'irasa, that does not apply by a Goy. That's what it's saying over here, according to Rabbi Yechanan. The Naira Ma'irasa. Again, so... What? That's a question. The Gemara is asking a question over here. Like Nitzcha El Naira Ma'irasa. The Lididhu, less Lahu... The lilu less lahu. Okay. 1 second. So how do I read this Gemara again? Sorry, just a second. So again, so Amar Rabbi Yechanan says, "Le'nitzrecha ela le'naira ma'irasa." That what this Braisa in the Sefer, what it's talking about is about a naira ma'irasa. The lidilhu less lahu. But that by a goyim it does not apply. Okay, now the Gemara asks over here, "Did dainina lahu bedina didon aval eishes ish bedina didhu daininon?" But what are you saying based on this? That when it comes to a naira ma'irasa, so then by their dinim you don't have this, but by a eishes ish, you will give the punishment the way you give it by goyim, which is what? What's the punishment by goyim? The punishment of sayif. Right, that's what the Gemara is answering here now. But Rabbi Yechanan is saying that if it's a naira ma'irasa, so then there's no chiyuv of misa b'chlal, because by a goyim it's only if there's a bu'ulas baal. But when it comes to an eishes ish, where she is already, the husband was boil her already. So over there, you're going to say that the reisha of the Braisa is saying that there will be a punishment like their dinner, which is sayif. But Tanya, but in the Braisa we learned bo al naira ma'irasa, that by a guy that our relation with a naira ma'irasa nidim b'skila. Al eishes ish, but by an eishes ish nidim b'chenek, you get the punishment of chenek. But if you say that you punish them with their punishments, sayifu, the punishment should be sayif. Okay, so what this is talking about over here is that the eishes ish, a guy that has a relation with a naira ma'irasa of a yid, a guy that has a relationship with a naira ma'irasa by goyim, so over there's no punishment for this. But the guy that has a relationship with a naira ma'irasa of a yid, so over here the punishment will be skila. And then this Braisa goes on to say, but if it was a eishes ish by a yid, then the punishment is chenek. But the question is, why is the punishment chenek? If eishes ish over there, you do judge them the way it is by goyim, that they're judged separately and they're judged with sayif, so why does it say over here in this Braisa that the punishment will be only chenek? Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, so Rav Nachman by Yitzchak says, "My Eishes Ish." In this brisa that we just quoted, what does the term of Eishes Ish mean? Diktani kagain shenichnasa lechuppah v'lei nivala. Over here, it's talking about an Eishes Ish that there was a chuppah already, but still her husband was not boiler. Right? So there's the first stage of marriage, which is edison, and then there's after chuppah when they moved in already together. That's really what chuppah usually means. But the husband was not boil her yet. So over there, by goyim, we're not going to judge them the way we judge, the lidhu, less lahu, by them, this issa does not apply, and therefore we're going to punish them only with our judgment, which is the punishment of chenek, not sayif. The Tani Rab Chanine, and where do we know that by a guy, even after chuppah, this is not yet considered to be a full Eishes Ish, because the pasuk says, Bu'ulas Baal, and Bu'ulas Baal means that only Bu'ulas Baal yesh lehen. If the Eishes Ish is in a case where the husband was already boil his wife, then the Isser of Eishes Ish applies by a guy, and the punishment will be sayif. Nichnasa l'chuppah. However, if there was only chuppah, which means the husband and wife moved in together, but v'lay nivala ein lahem. So then the Isser of by a guy does not apply the way it applies by them, and therefore, if a guy is going to be boil Eishes Ish by a yid when it's naira meirasa, or Nichnas l'chuppah, but there was no Bu'ulas Baal yet, you're going to judge the guy with the dinim of a yid, which is going to be either skila or chenek, but not with sayif. So Rashi over here brings, when it comes to a yid, the way you define an Eishes Ish is after chuppah. That's an Eishes Ish, even if the husband wasn't boiler yet. Naira Mayrasa is when she's still living by her father's house. By a guy, though, what's defined as an Eishes Ish is not Nichnas l'chuppah when she moved out of her father's house and moved in with her husband. Eishes Ish is dafka after Bu'ulas Baal when the husband was boiler. So that's what the Braisa means over here when it says that both by Nichnas l'chuppah and by Naira Meirasa, if the husband was not boiler yet, the dinim of a guy do not apply. It's not sayif, but rather it's going to be either skila by Naira Meirasa or chenek by the Nichnas l'chuppah and the husband was not boiler yet. Now the Gemara brings a source for this. Tanya Kvasei that Rav Yechanan, we learned like the pshat that Rav Yechanan said that by a goy you have this isser of the arayis. If he has a relation with a yid, then he'll be judged like by a yid, and that's by the naira mayrasa. So the Braisa here says, the first part of the Braisa is not relevant to what the Gemara is speaking about here, but the beginning of the Braisa says, Kol erve shebezin shel Yisrael memisin aleh, any arayis that by a yid there's a chiv misa, ben noyach muzar aleh. The goyim are warned on these arayis as well. Ein bezin shel Yisrael memisin aleh, if it's arayis that goyim are not warned on this, or there's no chiv misa that is by a yid, ein ben noyach muzar aleh. This issa does not apply by goyim. Divrei Rav Meir, this is according to Rav Meir, which means that according to Rav Meir, many arayis by yid that are applied by yidin do not apply by goyim, because many arayis by yidin there's no chiyuv misa, there's only a issa kodesh, and all those arayis that there's no misa, only kodesh, according to Rav Meir, does not apply by a guy. However, Chachamim say harba arayis yesh she'ein bezin shel Yisrael memisin alein. There are many arayis that there's no chiyuv misa, it's only kodesh. Uben noyach muzar alein, but a ben noyach is going to be warned in this, and it will be asur as well. Because we compare any arayis that there is by a yid, whether it's chiv misa, whether it's kodesh, a guy is warned in this as well. Now the Braisa concludes and says, and this is the raya to Rav Yechanan's pshat, ba al arayis Yisrael nidin b'dinei Yisrael. If the guy had a relation with a yid, the arayis of a yid, then he's going to be judged like by a yid. Ba arayis ben noyach nidin b'dinei ben noyach. If he has a relation with a guy, so then he's going to be judged like a guy. Now what's the difference? Va'anu ein lanu ella naira amayrasa bulvad. What's that distinction that we're saying that if a guy had a relation with a yid and then he's going to be judged like the arayis of a yid, the din of naira mayrasa. By a guy it says bu'ulas baal. That's an Eishes Ish. By a yid, even a naira mayrasa, the first stage of marriage, shall be judged. The isser applies over here as well if they had a relation with a yid. Now the Gemara asks, according to what we said before, v'nachshev nami nichnasu l'chuppah v'loy nivala. Why doesn't it mention also nichnasu l'chuppah? That's another example where the Eishes Ish of a yid and the Eishes Ish of a guy is different. Not only naira meirasa. And says the Gemara, Hi Tana de Ben Menashu, the Tana of this Braisa here is the Braisa that we brought before, the opinion that they taught by Menashe, the Omar Kol Misa Amur L'Bnei Noyach Ein Ela Chenek, that by a guy Bechlal, the Misa is always Chenek. So therefore, by Nichnas L'chuppah, there won't be any distinction over here. Idi v'idi Cheneku. By a Yid, Eishes Ish is Chayav Chenek, and by a guy, there is the Chayav is Chenek as well. So therefore, this is not a distinction to point out. Mashenkin, according to the opinion we mentioned before, by a Yid it's Sayif, and by a guy it's Chenek.